من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتلها. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد. Just before we begin, وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. As you can see, we have another concern. And it's the same thing I spoke about last night. We had another incident where a child got injured. We need to make sure if your child is here, the child has to be supervised. If your child isn't being supervised, then bring them at least with a guardian that supervises them. And the children should not be going to the bathroom during the majlis unaccompanied. Someone with them, an adult, a parent with them, so that they don't have an altercation when they leave. Because if incidents keep happening, we don't know what will happen next. Even there was an incident in one of the cities in Australia where a Husseiniya got closed down. This isn't one of those stories of hyperbole or a story where you're told so you be shocked. No, this actually did happen. So you need to be careful when it comes to your children and to observe them. Even if the child is a niece or a nephew or someone you know and you know their father is not present, you know, have the due diligence, have that confidence to stop them and see where they're going or what they are doing. And if they don't listen, then tell their parents. It's unfortunate that twice I have had to begin the talk with this warning. Okay. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So we mentioned 2 nights ago that in order to resolve this danger, some people tried to curb and constrain. What they do is they do what's called qama' or mana'. They don't let the child do anything. You can't breathe. The outside world does not exist. And the first that a child is exposed to anything, they'll be like a kid in a candy store. They'll do everything. You know, we saw with Sab'a Dammata, as they say, he'll do the 7 deadly sins. They won't care because of the harman. That's why if you ever see when people come from overseas and come to live here, you know what I mean? Some of them, they'll cocoon themselves because they go, oh my God, you know, I've just walked into too much openness and freedom. And others, they'll lose the plot completely because they've seen too much. You know, they've never seen this much skin in their life. It's like when you go to the Hajj and you're arriving as you're leaving in an airport outside. Now you don't need to. Now it's already available. Yeah, the Jeddah changed and that. But before you used to leave and get to a Khaliji airport and you say, you know, oh my God, the world's just changed all of a sudden. Especially if you've left in the summer. You know, you're exposed to more skin than you've ever seen in your life. And then the hijab starts to float away slowly, if you are, you know, looking at the menu. Now what happens is this person that's been locked up in their house, the second they're exposed, Ya billahi alaykum, think about this. The adult has a problem. Imagine the child that's full of energy, has testosterone levels that if they were tested by a drug agency, they'll think they were using something. This is how a child is at this point. The others, we said, are the ones that sit there and give indoctrination and propaganda. And they'll tell things like fairy tales to the child that aren't even true. The second the child is exposed to the realities of the world and everything, then he questions everything related to religion. Everything, because what he heard from his parents and the stories and the fairy tales all turned out not to be true. So we say what is left with raising your children, and this is what we're going to look at. You need to produce a substitute. Something that will substitute for them. You can't sit there and say, all right, like mushrooms are not a substitute for me. No matter how much a vegan tries to tell you they are, they're not. And this is what people are doing. They're giving mushrooms to their children rather than giving them another source. Something that they would actually enjoy to eat or to consume. Many a scholar has made a lot of efforts to counter the deviations that exist. There's a lot of people that put a lot of effort into working into this. Firstly, we're going to observe a narration that you hear many a time, and a lot of people, when it comes to a hadith, they have a tendency, because this new world where everyone's a faqih these days, they'll tell, this hadith is da'if. The only thing that's da'if is your intellect. You know, when you want to da'if a hadith, you have already stepped on dangerous grounds. Something you don't understand, you're the problem, not the actual narration. So stand aside. So when you say a hadith is weak, you need to understand what you're saying. Another problem we have is where people interpret the hadith to their own whims. I remember one person, he used to say that, well, I attend Friday prayers and then Saturday night I go clubbing. And I said, how do you compromise there? He says, don't the hadith say, Si'a ilaq wa si'a la rabbak? I said, where'd you come out? It's not even a hadith. The people get to the point where they say 1 hour's for you, 1 hour's for your Lord. Where do they come up with these ahadith? Where do they construct these hadith? Then the next time I saw him, he said, the hadith I told you was wrong. I said, all right, what's he going to say now? He said, the hadith says, اعمل لدنياك كأنك تعيش أبدا وأعمل لآخرتك كأنك تموت غدا. Do for your dunya as if you were to live forever, and do for your akhirah as if you were to die tomorrow. This time he understood that there is a hadith, but his interpretation of the hadith is incorrect. Every sa'ah to begin with is for your Lord. Every moment is for your Lord. Nothing's for you. Everything's for Allah Azza wa Jal. So when I read a hadith, I need to understand what the hadith is trying to express to me. And this hadith, which you hear so often, a lot of people do not understand, where Imam Abi Abdullah As-Sadiq Salamullah alayhi says, دع ابنك يلعب 7 سنين. Some people read this hadith, which means leave your child to play for 7 years, the first 7 years. Now some people read this hadith, literalists, they think دع ابنك يلعب 7 سنين, that their kid can climb on people's heads and it's all honky-dory. This person's going to accept. Their kid has no akhlaq. He swears to people. He abuses people. He points to his pee-pee in front of people. Does all these things. And the parent says, oh, look how cute he is. No, he's not cute. Your child is a pest. And you have not realized this. Your child is going to grow to be someone insubordinate that doesn't listen to any authority figure because you think he has carte blanche, as they say, a blank check to do whatever he wants. No. The hadith here is telling you not to obligate your child. Don't make them like you teach them. Because we have other hadith that tell you at this age Teach them this word. At that age, teach them that word. You know, La ilaha illallah, Allah, for example, one hadith, then La ilaha illallah tells you things you should do with your child, but don't obligate them. Don't say to the child, get up and pray. No. Sometimes you might pray and your 3-year-old will come and stand next to you and he'll pray, might do 1 rak'ah and walk off, or might just stay in sujood because that's his favorite position. Or he'll do something like that and then he just leaves. That's all. There's no obligation. When he does that, you say, oh, mashallah, you're praying. And you show that you're happy. And then the child understands that it's a good thing, but don't obligate them. Then it says, وَيُؤَدَّبْ سَبْعَ سِنِينَ. In fact, the hadith says in this, that at 7 you teach them how to pray. At 10 it says, وَضْرِبُوا عَلَيْهَا, which means to actually discipline them so that they do pray. You know, someone will say, oh my God, and I'll be talking a bit more about prayers and understanding, that you're going to discipline the child so we can pray. You know, isn't this abuse? Isn't this, well, if that's the attitude that people have, just to let you know how discipline works. In this world, the real world that everyone lives in, that they tell you do not, I want you to really think with me right now. They tell you you cannot discipline a child. They are killing children all over the world. And that is okay, because they're brown children, as I mentioned previously. As long as it's not a white child that they're killing. You can't discipline your child, but you're allowed to kill children in other countries. And you're also allowed to support the killing of children in other countries. So when the Westerner tries and uses this false and pretentious attitude or style that this is abuse, no. They don't believe in this. They don't want you to be able to what? Raise your child correctly. Or raise your child in a correct manner. And then it says that these next 7 years, and these are so important because from 7 to 14 is where the child is about to embark upon what? Juvenile adolescence and puberty. So you need to give them the instruments to understand what is right and what is wrong and how they are to function before they reach this age. Because this age is so dire and this age is so destructive if the child doesn't have correct discipline. I'll go into detail over your relationship in this moment. Finally it says, وَأَلْزِمْهُ نَفْسَكَ سَبْعَ سَنِينَ. Some people look at this, أَلْزِمْهُ نَفْسَكَ, meaning to be of a companion to your child. This does not mean, a lot of people think that means that you become like, you know, BFFs. There's no such thing. You're not best friends. You're the dad and he is the son, and it always stays that way. Alzimhu nafsak means take their opinion on things, talk to them like you're talking to someone that's like a colleague. However, remember, you're the father in the relationship. Doesn't mean he can come and give you a headlock and rub your scalp as if you're his buddy or whatever. No. You're still the father. You're still the authority figure in this relationship. You are still worthy of having that respect. And then the Imam says, فَإِنْ أَفْلَحَ وَإِلَّا فَإِنَّهُ مِمَّنْ لَا خَيْرَ فِيهِ. He says either that they succeed, or they're like what we mentioned before 2 nights ago, they're a bad seed. That's it. You can't do much. Once they hit 21 and they haven't understood the situation, 14 to 21, and they've chosen not to believe in God, they've chosen to walk away from religion, things are usually set. They've decided the pathway that they wish. Doesn't mean your child won't go haywire from 14 even to 30. They might do wrong things, but we're talking about whether they leave altogether. You know, when a child, yiftuk, basically loses the plot, just does whatever they want. They don't care anymore. You mention God, you know, they'll tell you, this is all just I remember one guy told me, I don't still believe in God. Or one incident when my brother, you know how he used to close his business on the day of Ashura, and then the next few days, a customer came who is what's it called? A Shia by birth. And he said to my brother, you were closed on the day, and it was the 10th. He said, I came to get a pink slip, and you weren't there. He said, it was the day of Ashura. He said, are you still commemorating this old event? Do you still think about this? You imagine, this guy had already cut ties with Imam Hussein a long time ago. He'd already made a decision that this doesn't interest me. And he moved upon his merry way. Now back to the discipline part, and this is important. You've all heard of the carrot and the stick. The carrot pretty much is when God says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ كَانَتْ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتُ الْفِرْدَوْسِ نُزُلًا. That the ones that believe and do good actions, righteous actions, they have paradise. This is called carrot. Targhib. Araghbak, I entice you and I encourage you to do good with a reward. Then there's the other side, where God warns of those that do wrong. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ كُفَّارًا أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. So if you're a disbeliever and you die upon disbelief, God forbid, then you have the punishment of hell. This is, we call this carrot and stick. Sometimes you encourage a child, and sometimes you threaten a child. And always remember, the threats should always be your last resort. Admonishing and discipline are the last. Sometimes some kids, that's the only way they work. Sometimes a kid only works with stick. Carrot does nothing for him. That's the way. You just got to work out, you got to gauge your child. Every child's different. Some child's all carrot. You know, they like, you know, when they give them at school those brag books where they put stickers for them, the kid says, you know, I got more stars than this kid. Some kids, that's what works for them. They just want to beat. It's competition. They want to get, they're vying with each other to see who becomes the best child. Other children, they need this to be admonished. They need to be put in that position. Now, the best way is what? Is conviction. And if you look at this, it was the method of the prophets. The first thing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said to the people when he called them to Islam, he didn't say, listen, you're all going to hell if you keep worshipping these idols. He began by saying, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ تُفْلِحُوا. Say that there is no God but Allah and you will succeed. Then the people ask, why? Then he will explain to them what the importance of this is. You know, I have a method that when someone's telling me a story, and this isn't something I invented, this is something I understood from listening to the stories of the Messenger of God, the Ahlul Bayt. When someone speaks, you allow them to speak, and rather than say, Astaghfirullah, stop where you are. They never used to do that, the Imams. Have a look at Hadith. When someone would speak, they would listen to the end, then they would say what needed to be said. Where a man came up to the Prophet, and this, I'm paraphrasing the Hadith, this is not verbatim. He said to the Messenger of God, or one of the Messenger of God, I think it was our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, or one of the other Anbiya, but they're all the representatives of Allah Azza wa Jal. And he says to him that I am someone that likes to fornicate. I am someone that enjoys fornication. And you know, everyone would have said, Astaghfirullah, burn this man, you know. You know, everyone becomes very pious at this point. Nastajiru billah, you know, we don't want to even think about this, you know, they get to that point. They say, some people like to say things, but those that know, like the Messenger of God and the Imma alayhum as-salam, they are patient in their speech, they know how to talk to people. So the Messenger of God called the man to come to him, and he wanted him to sit close to him. It says that he kept bringing him closer until his knees were touching the knees of the Prophet. See how close he let them feel this comfort of being next to him. Not the fact that the guy said, listen, I like this sin, on your bike. He first explained to him. He said, you like this? Would you like this to happen to your mother? Would anyone? That's the first question. Any sin, would you like? Apply it. If you say, I like to mug people or I like to steal, would you like someone to mug or steal from your mother? How does it change in your head now? The scenario becomes different now. Imagine you are someone that steals something from someone. Imagine someone stole from your mother. Any sane, rational, reasonable, functioning human being would not accept this. Would you like this to happen to your mother? I forgot to put my phone on silent. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So he said, imagine this would happen to your mother. He said, no, I wouldn't accept this. So then he said, what about your sister? He said, I wouldn't accept this. What about your daughter? He said, I wouldn't accept this. Then he said, how can you accept this on others? We have laws. The two laws I always live in my life with. Halal and haram what's haram is the extremity for me. Forget haram. You shouldn't even be thinking about going towards haram. Start here. Two laws I live by. One is when they say, do unto others as you may have others do unto you. Treat people like you want to be treated. Forget what's haram. Haram is another level. You shouldn't even be thinking about what's haram. If you don't like someone to litter in your house, don't throw rubbish out of the window. If you don't like someone blocking off your driveway, don't block the driveways of others. Simple things. We're not talking halal and haram here. Simple. These are akhlaqiyat. These are moral standards. And the other law I live by is what goes around, comes around. Whatever you do is going to come back to you. See, some of the brothers will call me and they'll say, listen, I want to perform a temporary marriage with a Muslim girl that's not married. She's never been married. But they go, listen, she isn't a virgin, but she's never been married. Can I? And I say, would you like someone to perform a temporary marriage with your daughter while she's in your house? Simple, that easy. How many people would like someone to perform a temporary marriage with their daughter while she's living in their house and not divorced? Put up your hand. So how is it that I decide? One of the brothers looked around to see if someone actually is going to put up their hand. So how is it that I decide that it's okay for me to go do these simple laws? Don't say, wallah, I saw this marja, he says in this condition. No. Simple laws, live by them. And when you teach your child like this, you make your child constructive and critical, and you let your child know, Dad, I'm not born in a box. Oh, this is haram. Everything the child wants to do is haram. It's haram to do this. Explain to them what they're doing. Someone comes up to me and says, can I listen to music? And I always tell them, look at the types of music. It defines the character of the person that lives. If you look at a lot of the people, when they used to listen to hip hop or to rap, they used to all suddenly think they're gangsters. They want to take everyone on. They walk around and, they'd envision themselves being like this. They walk around like they're 6'5" tall and they can take on the universe. And then someone that used to listen to grunge, you'd see them, they want to commit suicide. They're always the emo style, they're feeling down. And a girl said hello to him and he just got so excited, starts listening to love songs. That's it. That's the way. He hasn't even got to first base and he's excited. This is the way that they function. This is the way that they think. So when you're talking to your child, you don't underestimate the way your child thinks and interacts. To just sit there and say, you don't understand. I'm telling you how. It doesn't work like that. Because I'm going to tell you something. This is the parents and the ones planning on having children. A young man thinks that an old man is a fool. Think about this. But an old man knows that a young man is a fool. So the young man is always going to think, you need to remember, no matter what you tell them, they only listen to, they siphon, they sift through it. They listen to 20% of what you're saying. 80%, they're going to go through. Just teach them how to fall, how to get back up. You know what I mean? If you do this, I don't accept for you to do this, but if it happens, this is what will take place. You know, if a child says, I want to ride a motorbike, and people tell you, let those who ride decide. No. Because when you get a spinal injury, I'm the one that has to look after you. That's the problem. You know, one of my father's friends, he used to tell his son went and got a motorcycle. He said, Lek ya bayi. If you have an accident, موت. ما تبليني يا bayi. Die and do not, what? Inflict me that I have to sit and look after you as a quadriplegic for the rest of your life. Why? I don't want you to ride. This is something that you need to think about. The thing is, why do you explain these laws? What goes around comes around. Because the Imam says this, and this is important. Remember, the way you're treating your parents in front of your children is very important. The Imam says, "Barru aba'akum, yabarrakum abna'ukum." So if you are good to your parents in front of your children, and you should be good to your parents, then your children are going to be good to you. And then he says, وَعَفُّ عَنْ نِسَاءَ النَّاسِ. He says, عَفُّ عَنْ نِسَاءَ النَّاسِ تَعَفَّ نِسَاءَكُمْ. If you're sitting there checking out every woman that goes in and out of places, if you're standing around looking at other people's women, other people are going to be checking out your women. And you advance on other people's women, other people will advance on your women. And if you have no ghira, then this is going to be an issue for you. But you are mu'minin and a Shi'i of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It's impossible for you to be a Shia of Ali and be a Dayuth. They don't come together. These are the qualities of Banu Umayyah. These are the people that this is okay. A Dayuth in English is a cuckold. It's someone that doesn't mind when the women in their family are involved in promiscuous activity. So they're okay with that. If you fall under this category, you wouldn't be at this majlis. So don't make yourself of this category. Now the thing is, a Muslim in general is always open to dialogue. Because you have truth. When you have truth, walk tall. And be proud of what you have. So when you talk to your child, do not be afraid. One of the biggest arguments, and I've told a lot of the youth, I mentioned this over, and when someone calls me and says, because a lot of these youth, they get online and they meet some person that has got good rhetoric when they speak, they're able to influence them, and they'll mention, you know, you are followers, beat your chest, followers of the Shia, the Rafida, you beat your chest, etc., etc., and then they'll try and convince them that they're wrong. The first challenge I will tell the child, always, when someone calls me, I said, I'll give you a challenge. Tell this guy that I would like to sit with his Sheikh. If he agrees, I'll give you anything you want. He said, that's not true. I said, 100% he won't sit with me. They will not sit with us. Why? Because we have the truth. I'll make it very clear to you on what you follow so you can understand. I want to make this very clear. If a Christian comes home with the Quran, what do his parents do? They lose their minds. When I was 8 years old, I was with my father. We were driving to Adelaide. My father used to drive to all the cities areas where there were remote families. There was a remote family he'd see in Mount Isa. There was one on the outskirts of Brisbane in a farm. There was one we'd go and see close to Mount Gambier in South Australia. And he'd take me on these road trips. And as we were driving, one of the trucks had flicked up a stone. It hit the windscreen of the car. The windscreen shattered. We went into this town. We went to there was a motor shop, you know, a mechanic. and we had to wait for him to order a windscreen. While I was there, turns out the guy was a Jehovah's Witness. I didn't know I was 8 years old, didn't know what Jehovah's Witness was. He gave me a book. It was called my first book of Bible stories. And he goes, you should read this. When I got older, because my father was there, I said to my father, how did you allow me to read this book at a young age? He said, Bayyi shuf, you follow Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, if anything would shake or waver that faith, then you shouldn't be following Ali ibn Abi Talib. Means we are upon falsehood. At 8 years old, we're upon falsehood. Because if someone searches the haqq, he will always come to Ahlul Bayt. This is what I'm saying. This is the confidence that your child should have. You let them know our ulama are different. Likewise, if a child went into the other sect of Islam and he wanted, you walk into any of the mosques of the other sect and tell them, I want to become a Muslim. What's the first thing? Have a look at all the reverts, Stabsaru, and came towards Ahlul Bayt. The first thing they tell you, when I became with the other sect, they warned me of the Shia, the Rafidah. That's the first thing they do. Why would they warn you? I've never had anyone that came to me and I brought to Islam and I warned him of the Sunnah. If he told me I want to pray in a Sunni mosque, I pray in a Sunni mosque. I'll pray anywhere. There's a Musalla, I'll pray. Why would I care? I follow Ali ibn Abi Talib. I should be standing tall. I'm confident. Ali's haq. Wherever you look, you see Ali ibn Abi Talib. When someone says to you, you're reading this, have the confidence you must give your child. Your child comes and asks you, they'll get someone says, where is Ali ibn Abi Talib in the Quran? They'll ask you, where is Ali ibn Abi Talib in the Quran? When they ask Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Jews ask him, where is your Lord? Ask him, where's your Lord? Where's Allah? Astaghfirullah, I'm not doing a muqarana between Ali and God, but I just want to explain something to you. And he says, tell me where he is not and I will tell you he is. I'll tell you in the Quran, tell me where Ali is not and I'll show you where he is. You begin with Surah Al-Fatiha right from the start. From the beginning of Surah Al-Fatiha, I'm saying this is something that's accepted by everyone. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Guide us unto the upright path, the path of those that you have guided upon, you have put your blessings upon. Those people are Muhammad wa Al Muhammad. Ali ibn Abi Talib. That's Surah Al-Fatiha. You get to Surah Al-Baqarah, God starts early with Ali in the Surah Al-Baqarah. Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ. When people pick up the Quran, if I was to say, ذَلِكَ al-iPad, it's in front of me, you say, هذا الiPad. Or هذه, depends if it's mu'annath. I don't know how it works. But with the Quran, it doesn't say هذا الكتاب, it says ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Ali ibn Abi Talib is Kitabullah an-Natiq. This is what the verse is about. Then I move another page over. I'll tell you, where's Ali in the Quran? There's more, but I'm just going to go through and you can find these wherever you look. When he says, فَتَلَقَّى آدَمَ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. These kalimat are what? يَا حَمِيدُ بِحَقِّ مُحَمَّد. That Adam was told how to repent and turn to God. وَيَا عَالِي بِحَقِّ عَلِي. Now I missed, hold on, before I go on, I missed verses deliberately. But if someone wants to sit, we will go through the Quran. I'll show you page by page where you'll see Ali ibn Abi Talib. The only ones that don't see him are the blind of heart. They might see, but they don't see. The ones that are blind in heart, they can't see Ali. Ali's everywhere. Ali's in every part of religion. You'll find Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was the personification of Islam. He was the incarnation of the Quran in everything that he did. So your child has to know this. Your child has to be proud about this. Not sit there and say, oh, don't make your child into a shakek, someone that sits and doubts in his own belief. And that's a big problem. When you say to your child, I don't know. Instead, you should say, child, let's look. You got Google. You got all these avenues that you can look up and look at all. I'm not telling you to use Google. I'm saying for religion, but I'm saying you go to Shia online library if you want. Use the search engine. You got a lot of Rijal Din that you can ask, and they're everywhere that you can contact them if you don't know. Why? Because not only your child that should be learning, you should be learning as well. When they have this foundation in this religion, this is a substitute. They become unshakable. When the child doesn't have a foundation, the smallest thing will make them fall. Using a biblical verse in Matthew book 7, when it speaks about the foolish man that built his house on sand. The one that builds their house on sand, there's no stability. If you begin your child like this, they fall. We have a verse in the Quran like this, but I wanted to use it specifically to let you know that even if we do study anything or whatever there is, you will always find the truth is with Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. The other thing is, your friendship in life should be with your children. Dinners. Do you ever notice this is some of the qualities that we've lost, some people still have, that when they sit at the dinner table, the child shouldn't leave without being excused. You should be sitting together. It's a time you interact, not the time you lay down the law. Sometimes when I sit with my children on the table, I quiz them. They ask me to quiz them, not because they enjoy it. And do you know why they enjoy it? I'll tell you why. I was with a trip with my friends in Queensland a few weeks ago, and I started quizzing them in the car. And then one of them said to me, the questions are all so easy. I said, of course. He said, why? I said, what is the purpose if I give you difficult questions? What's the purpose? I'll make you feel stupid and make myself feel smart? When I give you simple questions, because this is what I need to reiterate with my child. I say to my child, who's the first Imam? He says, Ali ibn Abi Talib. Isn't that right? If I want to get fancy and I want to play around, I can tell them in what year did Ali ibn Abi Talib come to Islam. Now this is a loaded question because they give the wrong answer. And you say, oh, well, if you want to give them technically what everyone knew and what everyone understood, you'd say, all right, he came to Islam 10 years before the Hijrah. But the actual answer that Islam was with them from the very beginning. Do you understand? You start doing trick questions, they're not going to be interested. You give them simple questions, answers they need to know. You're not there to play around with them. You're there to educate them and place this within them. We're talking, inshallah, in the following nights also about the importance of prayers. See, sometimes a woman says something. When you say, she says, sometimes see, parents, they say, I don't want my daughter to wear hijab until she's convinced. I agree and I disagree. How? I agree, yes, they should be convinced that what hijab is for. But I disagree that you need to convince them when they're 25 years old. Do you understand what I mean? With everything. Because when they're very young, they're not ready to understand everything. Could you imagine right now? I tell my daughter, she's at the age where Shar'an she has to wear hijab. She's completed her 9th year, or completed the 8th year, she'd begin in the 9th year of Hijrah. And I tell her, you have to wear hijab. And she says, I'm not convinced. And I sit back. Now, I'll reapply this to every parent. If you told your child to go to bed and they said, I'm not convinced, what would you say? I'm ahlak habibi till you get convinced. Or I'm ahlik habibti till you get convinced. Would they say, oh, it's okay, we'll take our time? If they told you to brush your teeth, if the parent told the child brush your teeth, the child said, I don't want to. Well, I'll wait till they get older. Don't know how many cavities they'll develop by then I'll tell them it's okay. Then we'll discuss it. If I told the child they have to go to school, the child says, I don't want to go to school. Why is it everything I don't have to convince them? They have to do it. But when it comes to religion, we say, wait till they're convinced. No, I let them pray. I let them fast. I let them wear hijab. And as they grow, I let them understand. And inshallah, we'll go over this with what the conviction is. Do not allow social media platforms to destroy the way the child thinks. And I'm not saying to ban them. Be very selective on what they can use and understand. You need to educate yourself with how they function. You need to, if you sit there and go and make a Facebook account yourself, just make a Facebook account. Just to do it. The parents that don't have one, and just look at your feed and someone sends you a link to watch a video. You finish watching that video, watch and see what the next video that pops up is. You will lose your head. Even on YouTube, even on TikTok, or whatever they're using, what pops up, and this is what your child is being exposed to that you do not know. I'm not saying to stand over them 24/7. Inshallah, we're going to go into more detail about this in the following nights. Hello, I wanted to touch tonight, and obviously because of our time, we've been constrained. So I'm going to try and explain that the Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam, how much time do I have, Hajj? So I'm actually almost done, so I got it around that. Inshallah, tomorrow night, we will go over this story, even though I was unable to go over it, but we will talk about Muslim Aqil from the beginning, inshallah, of tomorrow night, because I've been unable because the time has flown past, not expecting that this would take place. But we'll talk over the story about Muslim Aqil and the other story that we're allowed to discuss tomorrow night, inshallah, and I'll continue where we're going with regard to the story. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to guide us, firstly ourselves, we ask for ourselves, and to guide our families unto the righteous path, the path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhim afdal as-salatu was-salam, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.